Hi everyone and welcome to English for You. I'm Pat.
I'm Mike.
So Mike, I remember, and I think it was recently, during a teaching session, you mentioned having gone to Africa.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about that?
I went to Africa.
Where in Africa?
Excuse me, I went to Kenya.
Oh,
which
that's
was
right.
Lovely.
I think you did mention that. Okay.
We arrived on the first day of the rainy season, and by the time we left the airport and got to the hotel, the water was up to our ankles.
Wow.
But then it dried off, and we did the safari thing.
Excellent.
And we saw all the big animals, except I believe
the big five, isn't it? So
yeah,
you've
we
got
didn't
like
see
buffalo, rhino,
those.
elephants, lions, and leopards. Or
No
was it
rhinos.
hippos? No
We
rhinos.
didn't see any rhinos. We saw leopards, lots of lions, tons of antelope, elephants, hippos. So it was good fun.
Excellent.
Somewhere I'd definitely like to go back.
Okay, and that Kenya is East Africa, right?
It is
my
East Africa.
geography is
Yes,
correct there. Okay,
that's right.
Because the only part of Africa I've ever been to, and it's not even really part of Africa, is the Canary Islands.
Oh, okay, out there in the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, they're off the coast, the west coast of Africa, but they're owned by Spain.
Right, yeah.
The Spanish is the spoken language. There are Africans there, and there's a lot of kind of African culture sort of seeping in to mix with the Spanish.
Okay, nice.
But that's it. I've never been to mainland, sort of the main continent part.
Well, you can add that to your bucket list.
I shall.
Yeah.
And we mention East Africa because we're talking about an East African country today, Rwanda. Okay.
East Central, yeah.
Yeah, so let's read through that article, or day one of the article, and learn more about Africa's land of 1,000 hills.
Reading.
Rwanda, Africa's land of 1,000 hills. A few minutes before your plane lands, you look out the window. An hour ago, you were passing over beautiful Lake Kivu. Now, though, you see bright green farmland and dusty red roads. In the distance, the city of Kigali stretches out over rolling hills. You're about to arrive in Rwanda, a nature-rich country that has survived tragedy to become East Africa's greatest success story. Known as the land of 1,000 hills, Little Rwanda is more diverse than countries many times its size. In the north, the Ruvunga Mountains' towering peaks reach up to 4,507 meters high. What attracts most visitors to this dramatic landscape, though, is its growing mountain gorilla population. It's the largest in the world, with over 1,000 individuals in 2018. In the 1980s, the same area had only 254. Gorillas aren't the only animals making a comeback in Rwanda. Akagera National Park on the country's eastern border was almost destroyed by war in the 1990s. However, environmental groups have helped bring leopards, lions, buffalo, and elephants back to the region. Some of the money brought here by nature tourism goes toward building schools and hospitals, making Rwanda's environmental successes a win for everybody.
So the article begins with a description of what it might feel like to arrive in Rwanda.
Wow.
It says, a few minutes before your plane lands, you look out the window. Yep,
Okay.
pretty typical thing you would do.
Yeah,
Check things out. What's it look like?
Absolutely. But of course, you'd see very different things out that window since you're landing in Africa. And then it also says, an hour ago, you were passing over beautiful Lake Kivu. Okay, so imagine green jungle and then this beautiful blue lake right in the middle of it. That would be Lake Kivu. Now, as you get down to closer to the ground, you start to see signs of human activity.
Right, we see in the article it says, now, though, you see bright green farmland and dusty red roads. So some very rich colours coming out here. We use the word farmland there. Farmland is all one word, and it just means land that is used for farming. It's been, maybe they've dug canals in there to supply water. It's flat. Basically, the soil is good, and it's either used for growing crops or having animals in.
That's right. Of course, in this part of Africa, they would have cleared the jungle to create this farmland. So it would be an open area in the middle of a lot of jungle. And then in the distance, it says, in the distance, the city of Kigali stretches out over rolling hills. Okay. Kigali is the capital of Rwanda, the largest town, the largest city there. And it's an interesting place. It says it stretches out over rolling hills. Very interesting. So the geography obviously takes a big part of giving the city its character because there are rolling hills, these sort of higher points, lower points, all kind of mixed together. And it's, not too sharp, not mountains. We're not talking about cliffs that you have to hike up, but definitely a hilly part of the continent, part of Africa, these rolling hills. And it also gives us an idea of the size of the city because we use this verb to stretch. The city stretches over these rolling hills. And here to stretch is basically to kind of go from one part to another part, from one place to another place, from A to B, if you will. The other idea is that if something stretches, it probably covers quite a large distance. We can talk about something narrow stretching. Maybe a bridge might stretch across a river. Or we could talk about a city stretching for, across 10 kilometers. It would, you'd have to drive for half an hour to get from one side of the city to the other. It's that big. It covers that much area. It stretches across that much of the landscape. For example, the Rocky Mountains stretch from Canada into America. Yeah, hundreds and hundreds of kilometers. Those mountains go. They reach from sort of central northern Canada all the way down to central southern U.S. So it covers a lot of ground.
Yep, over rolling hills, which as Mike kind of mentioned, this is a series of low hills, not very high ones. And the adjective rolling kind of describes the feeling of riding over them. You go up, you go down, you go up, you go down. You don't really stay on any flat places for long. And also the way the land kind of seems to roll up and down. And I guess if you're from Taiwan, as I'm sure most of you are, most cities are built in like flat places. So maybe you're not so used to this idea of cities built in or over and stretching across sets of hills.
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess if you were driving maybe across an area of northern Taiwan, you'd be driving between or through or among rolling hills. Not quite mountains, but definitely, a place to go for a nice hike across some rolling hills. And it says you're about to arrive in Rwanda, a nature-rich country that has survived tragedy to become East Africa's greatest success story. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Rwanda's gone from great tragedy 25 years ago, something like that. Yeah, up to becoming a great success story. I noticed recently I was watching some EPL, English Premier League, and Visit Rwanda is one of the big advertisements that you see there. I think one of the teams, maybe Leicester City or Everton, they're sponsored by Visit Rwanda.
All right.
And I was kind of thinking, wow, a place that had terrible violence and tragedy, just 20-30 years ago is now a big popular tourist destination. So yeah, you could definitely say it's a great success story these days. But in the past, as we mentioned in the 90s, there was tragedy there. What is tragedy? Tragedy is the opposite of something great and successful and wonderful. It's something terrible and sad and awful. We often use this word to describe disasters or big accidents or wars or even in your own life. If someone dies and they're very close to you and it's kind of a terrible shock and a great sadness in your life, that would be a tragedy. No one wants a tragedy in their life, but unfortunately it is part of life. Occasionally there are tragedies or terrible, sad, awful events.
Okay, so we'll learn more about that in day 2, the Rwandan genocide and the other things that happened. Now we're going to go back to talking about Rwanda. And the article says, known as the land of 1,000 hills, little Rwanda is more diverse than countries many times its size.
Very interesting. So a place is described as being diverse. That means it has a lot of variety in it. There's a lot of different things probably in one area. One of the things you could say about buffets, why they're so popular, it has diverse food, right? You can get sushi, you can get Italian food, you get Chinese food, all sorts of diverse styles of food, right? A great variety. Or a lot of people like to watch different types of movies or television. I like watching Netflix because they have diverse programs programs, comedy films, action films, serious TV shows, cartoons, a great diverse variety or a diverse selection of things to watch. It means a lot of different types in one place.
Yeah, and we say Rwanda is more diverse than countries many times its size. And using many times, this grammar pattern gives a comparison of size or some other quality between two things. For example, if one building is twice as high as another building, we can say it's 2 times its height. If one person has 9 books and another person has 27 books, the second one has 3 times as many books. So it's using basic multiplication to give an idea of how much bigger, smaller, or whatever you're measuring, more or less than something else when you're talking about two things and comparing them. So if a country is many times the size of another, it's much bigger. You could fit several of the smaller country inside the bigger one. Here's another example. My new apartment is 2 times the size of my old one. So my old one was maybe 20 ping, this one's 40 ping.
Interesting. Okay, so back to Rwanda, talking about how diverse the land is. We already had a lake there in a jungle area. We had farmland. We had the city of Kigali. And then we read in the north, that's in the north of the country of Rwanda, the Virunga Mountains, towering peaks, reach up to 4,507 meters high. Wow, those are quite high mountains. And I love the name Virunga. It just sounds exotic and wild and kind of an adventurous place to go. And you'd have to be adventurous to climb these towering peaks. They're quite tall. That's about 600 meters taller than Jade Mountain here in Taiwan. So we're up in the clouds. You would definitely want to spend a good few hours if you're trying to climb to the top of the peaks of the Virunga Mountains. And when we use this word peak, well, a peak, if you're talking about one place, one thing, that's basically the top of the mountain. As you climb up the mountain and you can't go any further, you have reached the peak. Often on the peak of a mountain, they might put a flag or some kind of marker to show you how tall it is, how high it is above the rest of the land. But when we talk about peaks, plural, we're really just saying mountains, right? If you go hiking in the peaks of this mountain range, you're just hiking among the many mountains because most mountains have peaks. They have pointy tops. And we can also use this description of the pointy top of a mountain just to talk about mountains in general. For example, the two most famous peaks in the Himalayas are Mount Everest and K2, which are both about double the height of the Virunga Mountains' highest peaks.
Okay, so we've talked lakes, we've talked mountains, farmland, cities.
Very diverse.
Some jungle,
Yes.
And then we see in the article that what attracts most visitors to this dramatic landscape, though, is its growing mountain gorilla population. So we've described the landscape and this country as diverse. We also describe it as dramatic. Something that is dramatic is striking. It's impressive. You kind of see it and you go, oh, wow, that's kind of like it's cool. It conjures up some emotion in me that makes me feel something.
It's definitely not boring.
Right, like drama on a stage might make you go, oh, that's dramatic. There's interesting things going on here. There's changes. There's just stuff that makes me wow. Here's another example of how we could use it. The lights went out and then the singer made a dramatic entrance. So not just walking on stage, but maybe being lowered from above in smoke and lights and something like that.
Fireworks going off.
Yeah, appearing out of the mouth of a sort of model dragon, something cool like that.
Appearing out of thin air like a magician.
Yeah, that's dramatic. It makes people go, oh, that's cool, that's impressive.
Gee, did you see that?
Yeah, it's something you'll remember and talk about.
Yeah.
And all of this is used to describe the landscape.
That's right. Dramatic landscape would be landscape or geography. It's very unique, very different. The kind of thing you'd see in a picture in National Geographic magazine. It's not just a boring field with a tree sitting in the middle. No, we're talking about mountains in the background, trees in the front, maybe a lake off to the side, and over there's the crashing waves of the ocean as they hit the shore. It's the kind of place that you definitely want to get out a camera, take a picture of. If you're artistically inclined, you'd want to paint a picture of it. You don't paint pictures or take photographs of boring, dreary, dull landscapes. No, it's got to be dramatic. So landscape is really just to describe the geography, the shape of the earth, what's going on there. different landscapes in different areas. If you're in the Sahara Desert, the landscape would be giant sand dunes. And if you're in the Rocky Mountains of North America, you'd see forests with mountains in the background and snow right up on the top. So this is just talking about the shape of the land, the lay of the land, the features of the land, the landscape, the geography.
And we said, though, that it's not the landscape, as attractive as it is, that gets a lot of people coming to Rwanda. It's the mountain gorilla population, and there are more and more of these mountain gorillas these days. The gorilla is the largest ape. It's the largest of the great apes. It's the really big one. They have black or silver fur as they get older. They live in sort of small groups up in the mountains, sometimes in the lowlands, and they're pretty rare. There aren't as many gorillas in the world as there used to be, because their habitats get destroyed. People sometimes kill them. You can find them in captivity. There's one at least in Taipei Zoo.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, there's a big gorilla, big adult male. I think there's at least one.
Okay.
I remember seeing him. But, yep, it's the really big ape.
Absolutely. But they are hard to find because, as you mentioned, they live in the forests. But that hasn't protected them from, you're right, being hunted and having their habitat, the place they live, being cut down and, destroyed. But it's the largest in the world, this community, this gorilla population there in the mountains of Rwanda. It's the largest in the world with over 1,000 individuals in 2018. Wow, so that's pretty good because they were down to a few hundred, maybe 10, 20 years ago. But the population, the number that we find in that place has grown to about 1,000 individuals. And here we're using individuals instead of just saying gorillas or animals or something like that. An individual is just one single thing, often a person or a living thing like that. We can talk about the number of people in a room. How many individuals will be coming to the meeting? How many people will be at the meeting? So we're just using it to talk about one person on their own, and we usually use that to add up the numbers and to come up with a total. For example, police raided the illegal casino and arrested 21 individuals. They could say 21 people. They don't have to say, 18 men and 3 women or something like that. We just use individuals in this sense, in the same way we would say people.
Yeah, and as Mike mentioned, this number of over 1,000 individual gorillas is good. It's impressive because as we see in the article, in the 1980s, so only 40 years ago, the same area had only 254.
Wow,
so
less than 300. That's amazing.
And so there are now 4 times as many gorillas hanging out in the mountain areas, sort of lower down in the mountains. So that's really impressive.
Wow, that is great. So they've obviously made a comeback, and we see that phrase, and we find some other examples in the next sentence. Gorillas aren't the only animals making a comeback in Rwanda. So this is more good news, because if something makes a comeback, it kind of recovers. If we're talking about a population of individuals, the idea here is that there were fewer in the past, and now the numbers are growing again. Okay, so they have had some tough times before, but things are getting better now. The future is looking better and better, so they're making a comeback. We often use this when we're talking about nature to talk about an area where there was a threat, where they maybe chopped down a lot of the trees in a forest, and now the trees are making a comeback, or the whole forest is making a comeback. It's recovering from a bad situation to be better off than it was in the past.
Yeah, we see some examples of that now, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name of this place right, but Akagera, maybe, Akagera National Park on the country's eastern border was almost destroyed by war in the 1990s.
Wow.
If something is destroyed, it is basically smashed to the point where it's no longer usable or even recognizable. All the land could be burned, a destroyed building is knocked down, a destroyed car, you can't ever drive again, that kind of thing. It's just been damaged to the point where it is useless and you can't even tell what it is. For example, the race car was destroyed in the high-speed crash. So if a national park's destroyed, we think of the ground being burned, the trees being cut down, the animals being killed, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, really, really bad. Not just a small amount of damage, total damage. How However, we read, however, environmental groups have helped bring leopards, lions, buffalo, and elephants back to the region. Wow. So all of these animals are making a comeback in this Akagera National Park, and that's great because, as you mentioned, it was almost destroyed 20 or 30 years ago, but now the forest is coming back, and of course, once the forest comes back, the animals that live in that forest, big animals and small, they all come back. And of course, our list is the big animals, but I guess we can assume that birds and insects and smaller animals are also coming back too. So good news all around.
Yeah, and because a lot of people go to see these animals, the gorillas and so on, and we see in the article that some of the money brought here by nature tourism goes toward building schools and hospitals, making Rwanda's environmental success a win for everybody. So every place in the country benefits by the money that's coming in through this tourism to see nature and animals. Tourism is the activity, the business of travel for fun. It's not business travel. It's not people going to countries for work or to do a job. It's people who go for a vacation to see the places, to experience the culture. And tourism, if you're a person doing it, you're a tourist. You could go on a tour. Tourism is the kind of whole industry, including all of this different stuff.
There you
For
go.
example, we could say Italy is a country that relies on tourism. Like many countries around the world, a lot of its money is people coming to visit it and spending their money there in hotels, on food, visiting places, and so on.
Absolutely. And if you're going to go on a nice holiday, you might be saving your money to go towards paying for your holiday. If something goes towards, especially if we're talking about money, we're saying that this money is going to pay for something. You know, we often talk about this when looking at how the economy works, or maybe how your own personal economy works. If you're saving money, no, I can't save that money. It's going towards buying a birthday gift for my dad or something like that. That's basically you're dedicating it, you're focusing it on a certain project or a certain goal or a certain cost that you're planning for. So it's going to go towards something, it's going to pay for something.
Yep, we're going to learn more about Rwanda, especially in the cities, and talking about the people in tomorrow's article, day 2. But right now we'll go to our For You Chat question.
For You Chat.
So today's question is, which countries in Africa would you like to visit? What would you like to do there?
Gosh, what a question.
Yeah.
How many countries in Africa are there? 40
Over
or 50?
something.
All of them. Well,
Right.
maybe that might be a bit much. South Africa,
Yeah,
I think would
that's
be
on my list. But
very
why?
interesting.
Because I would go there. I would like to see rugby there. I would like to see cricket there. And I'd like to go to Cape Town and see Table Mountain and the rest of that
beautiful
stuff.
city. I think they have great food there. You know,
Right.
that's another thing people might not know about certain places in Africa. The food can be wonderful. Yeah, those are all good things to see. And of course, they do have a lot of the same animals you might see in East Africa if you're interested in the lions and the elephants and the rhinos and stuff like that. South Africa is a good place to visit. West Africa, I've always wanted to go. I don't really know where. I mean, Ghana would be great. I had a teacher who used to live there, and he told us a lot about it. But also Senegal has great music. I've been a big fan of a lot of musicians from Senegal over the years, so that's always been an interesting place for me.
My family, except me, because I was too old at that point to go with them, went to the Gambia, which is like a river country in the middle of Senegal.
Very narrow.
They really liked it there.
Okay.
You stick Egypt on the list as well.
Sure, yes. North
to see
Africa.
the pyramids and all the famous stuff there.
Or Tunisia to see some of the great Roman ruins they have there as well.
There's, and the food in that region is also extremely good and the kind of food I like. So.
And you can see where they filmed Star Wars.
Yes, indeed. That's where I was conceived. I could go to the place where I was conceived in the north of the Sahara Desert.
Okay,
There you go. There's a fun fact about me.
That's right.
And it's a good place to end for today. But join us again tomorrow to learn more about Rwanda. See you then. Bye for now.
Take care.
Rwanda, Africa's land of 1,000 hills. A few minutes before your plane lands, you look out the window. An hour ago, you were passing over beautiful Lake Kivu. Now, though, you see bright green farmland and dusty red roads. In the distance, The city of Kigali stretches out over rolling hills. You're about to arrive in Rwanda, a nature-rich country that has survived tragedy to become East Africa's greatest success story. Known as the land of 1,000 hills, Little Rwanda is more diverse than countries many times its size. In the north, the Ruvunga Mountains' towering peaks reach up to 4,507 meters high. What attracts most visitors to this dramatic landscape, though, is its growing mountain gorilla population. It's the largest in the world, with over 1,000 individuals in 2018. In the 1980s, the same area had only 254. Gorillas aren't the only animals making a comeback in Rwanda. Akagera National Park on the country's eastern border was almost destroyed by war in the 1990s. However, environmental groups have helped bring leopards, lions, buffalo, and elephants back to the region. Some of the money brought here by nature tourism goes toward building schools and hospitals, making Rwanda's environmental successes a win for everybody.
Vocabulary Review.
Stretch. Taiwan's Yushan National Park is the largest in the country, as it stretches over 1,000 square kilometers. Peak. The snow-covered peak of Mount Fuji can be seen easily from the city of Tokyo. Dramatic. On his trip around the U.S., John enjoyed seeing Niagara Falls, the Grand Canyon, Mount Rushmore, and other dramatic sights. Individual. Most of this school's students come from the local area, but a few individuals are from abroad. Destroy. Many buildings burned down in a fire that destroyed much of the city. Tourism. Tourism is important to Kending, which is why you'll find so many hotels there.
智慧小补帖
Farmland. Tragedy. Diverse. Diverse. Landscape.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net